Chapter 2, Page 2 of Arc 2.
Chase kept checking his phone for Mr. Bolt's reply, feeling a mixture of patience and nervousness. He reminded himself that it was a significant request and that Mr. Bolt might need time to process it. As he waited, he tried to distract himself by working on his music and jotting down ideas for the special needs place. Despite his efforts, he couldn't shake the anticipation of receiving a response, hoping for clarity on what the future might hold. Chase kept checking his phone for Mr. Bolt's reply, feeling a mixture of patience and nervousness. He reminded himself that it was a significant request and that Mr. Bolt might need time to process it. As he waited, he tried to distract himself by working on his music and jotting down ideas for the special needs place. Despite his efforts, he couldn't shake the anticipation of receiving a response, hoping for clarity on what the future might hold. Chase frequently checked his phone for a message from Mr. Bolt, feeling a sense of anticipation with each glance. As time passed, he tried to keep himself occupied with other activities, but the thought of the conversation lingered in his mind. He knew that reaching out for support was a big step, and he hoped for a thoughtful response. Despite the waiting, he remained hopeful that they could discuss his feelings and aspirations soon. Chase habitually checked his phone for updates from Mr. Bolt, glancing at the screen every few minutes. The waiting was becoming a routine, and he found himself both anxious and hopeful for a reply. While he engaged in other activities to pass the time, the anticipation of hearing back from Mr. Bolt remained at the forefront of his thoughts. Chase regularly monitored his phone for messages from Mr. Bolt, checking for updates throughout the day. He kept himself busy with various activities but found it difficult to shake off the anticipation. Each time he heard a notification, he felt a brief surge of hope, only to be met with the reality of having no new messages. As time went on, he remained patient, understanding that Mr. Bolt might need time to respond. Chase consistently checked his phone for updates from Mr. Bolt, keeping an eye out for any new messages. He tried to stay engaged with his daily activities, but the anticipation of a reply lingered in the back of his mind. As he waited, he reminded himself that it was important to be patient, understanding that Mr. Bolt might be taking time to consider the request. Chase waited and waited for a response from Mr. Bolt. Minutes turned into hours as he continued to check his phone regularly, hoping for an update. He occupied himself with various tasks, but the anticipation lingered. Despite the uncertainty, he tried to remain patient, understanding that meaningful conversations often take time. Chase continued to wait endlessly for a response from Mr. Bolt. He found himself checking his phone repeatedly, but there was still no message. As time passed, he tried to focus on other things, though the anticipation weighed on him. He wondered what Mr. Bolt might be thinking and hoped for clarity soon. Chase persisted in his wait without end, checking his phone periodically for any sign of a message from Mr. Bolt. Despite the lack of response, he occupied himself with various activities and tried to keep his mind off the situation. The uncertainty lingered, but he remained hopeful that he would eventually hear back. Chase continued to wait indefinitely for a response from Mr. Bolt. He kept his phone close, occasionally checking for updates, but there was still no message. As time went on, he tried to engage in other activities, though the anticipation remained a constant undercurrent in his thoughts. He understood that sometimes, responses take longer than expected. Chase stayed put, without any end in sight, keeping his phone nearby in case a message from Mr. Bolt arrived. He maintained his routine, trying not to let the uncertainty disrupt his day. Although the wait felt prolonged, he understood that some things take time and remained open to whatever the outcome might be. Chase remained in place with no resolution in view, his phone close at hand as he continued to wait for a message from Mr. Bold. He focused on his daily activities, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy despite the lingering anticipation. Though the situation was unresolved, he accepted the uncertainty and stayed patient. Chase continued to wait, his focus divided between his phone and the tasks at hand. Each moment stretched as he hoped for a message from Mr. Bold, yet he tried to carry on with his day. The waiting seemed endless, but he maintained his patience, understanding that a response would come in due time. Chase kept waiting, Chase kept waiting, his phone nearby as he went about his day. Despite the lack of response from Mr. Bold, he maintained a steady routine, checking for updates periodically. The waiting persisted, but he remained patient, knowing that responses can sometimes take time. Chase is simply awaiting a response, exhibiting patience as he goes about his day. He checks his phone occasionally but continues with his task. Chase is simply awaiting a response, exhibiting patience as he goes about his day. He checks his phone occasionally but continues with his tasks, understanding that it may take some time to hear back from Mr. Gold. Chase is just biding his time, demonstrating calmness as he waits for a response from Mr. Gold. He remains composed, occupying himself with various activities while keeping an eye on his phone for any updates. The atmosphere around him is steady, reflecting his patient demeanor. Chase knows that his wife mentioned in a text message that Mr. Colt is super busy with his new job. Understanding this, he remains patient and recognizes that it may take some time before he receives a response. Chase is aware that his wife informed him that Mr. Bolt is currently very busy with his new job. He understands that this may be the reason for the delay in communication. Keeps texting Mr. Bolt to see if he and his son would be interested in moving in with him. He is eager for a response but remains understanding of Mr. Bolt's busy schedule. Chase continues to text Mr. Bolt, inquiring if he and his son would be interested in moving in with him. He is awaiting a response while being mindful of Mr. Bolt's busy schedule. Chase keeps texting Mr. Bolt to ask if he and his son would be interested in moving in with him. He hopes for a response but understands that Mr. Bolt may be preoccupied with his new job. texting Mr. Bolt to ask if he and his son would be interested in moving in with him. He hopes for a response but understands that Mr. Bolt may be preoccupied with his new job. Chase keeps texting Mr. Bolt to see if he and his son would like to move in with him. He is awaiting a response and is aware that Mr. Bolt's busy schedule might delay communication. Chase keeps texting Mr. Bolt to ask if he and his son would be interested in moving in with him. He is awaiting a reply, understanding that Mr. Bolt may be busy with other commitments. Chase keeps texting Mr. Bolt, asking him if they could start a new family together. He hopes for a thoughtful response, understanding that the decision may take time.
Well, she got nothing, you know. If Mr. Button is able to find nothing was. And
Chase keeps texting Mr. Bolt, asking him if they could start a new family together. He hopes for a thoughtful response, understanding that the decision may take time. Chase keeps texting Mr. Bolt to ask if they could start a new family. He is eager for a response and is open to discussing the possibilities. For personal reasons. Chase wanted to change his full name for personal reasons. He is considering the implications and steps involved in the process. Chase wanted to change his full name for personal reasons. He is considering the implications and steps involved in the process. To change his full name for personal reasons. He is considering the Chase wanted to change his full name for personal reasons. He is considering the implications and steps involved in the process.
Chase decided to it.
Chase decided to adopt a new name entirely. He felt that a fresh identity would better reflect his current life and aspirations. The decision was significant for him, and he began to contemplate what name would resonate most with his sense of self. He asked his mom if he could change his name this year. She listened thoughtfully and considered his request before responding. He asked his mom if he could change his name this year. She acknowledged his request and said she would support him in whatever decision he made. He inquired with his mother about the possibility of changing his name this year. She listened to his request and indicated that they could discuss it further. He inquired with his mother about the possibility of changing his name this year. She responded neutrally, suggesting that they could explore the process and implications together. He asked his mother if he could change his name this year. She replied that it was an important decision and that they should discuss it further to understand his reasons and the process involved. He requested his mother's approval to switch his name this year. She acknowledged his request and mentioned that they could talk about it to explore his reasons and the steps involved.
He requested his mother's
He requested his mother's approval to switch his name this year. She considered his request thoughtfully and indicated that they could discuss his reasons and the implications of such a change. He requested his mother's approval to switch his name this year. This change is tied to his self-concept, as he feels that a new name could better represent his identity and personal growth. expressed a desire to change his name because of a group of boys and feels that a fresh new name would help him distance himself from that association. He wants to change his name as part of his personal growth. He believes that adopting a fresh new name will help him move forward and create a new identity for himself, separate from the influences of the group
Are
of
you ready
boys.
to eat?
Yes, hold on.
Okay, then you can go ahead and
He wants to change his name as part of his personal growth. He believes that adopting a fresh new name will help him move forward and create a new identity for himself, separate from the influences of the group of boys. He decided to choose the name Eli as it pays homage to a role model he admires. This name resonates with him and reflects the He expressed a desire to change his name to Christopher Wilde. He feels that this name resonates with him and represents a new chapter in his life. He has a strong desire to be called Christopher Wilde. He believes this name reflects his identity and aspirations. He wishes to be addressed as Christopher Wilde. He wishes to be addressed as Christopher Wilde. He really wants to change his name to Christopher Wilde. He feels that this name better reflects his identity and aspirations. He is considering changing his name to Christopher Wilde. He wants a fresh, new look. He wants a fresh new look. He wants a fresh new look.
And you